In the early start of the year, January 1954, at the time when the winter's cold was at its peak, a girl was born into humble beginnings in the rural area of Mississippi. Raised by a poor and single teenage mother, she constantly faced numerous challenges from a very young age. One of such was having to grow up in a house without indoor plumbing, and at times, not even having a pair of shoes to wear to school. And if you thought that was all, then I'm sorry to say this was just a drop in the ocean compared to what next I'm about to tell you. This girl was also sexually abused by a family member and had to run away from home at just age 13. But things would change for the better, and this same girl would end up going from a life of little to nothing to being worth $2.8 billion. In fact, Forbes placed her as the 13th richest person on its list of America's self-made women in 2023. So how did she do it? How did she amass such a fortune and an impressive reputation to match? Some attribute her audacious success to her early struggles and believe they were the crucible that forged her indomitable spirit and insatiable hunger for knowledge. But if we're to be honest, then we'll admit there's way more to it than just the sheer resilience that struggling early in life teaches. So what more is there to her story, and again, just how did she do it? Well, here's the inspirational story of Oprah Winfrey's humble beginnings and her rise to success from nothing. When you watch the Oprah Winfrey Show, the woman on your TV wouldn't strike you as someone who has been through hell and back, but Oprah is a woman who has in fact lived through hell and has risen to tell the story. Well, here's where it all began. As a girl, it wasn't all rosy for Oprah as she grew up in abject poverty. They were so poor that little Oprah wore dresses made from potato sacks and lived in a house without indoor plumbing or even electricity. Her mother worked round the clock to make ends meet, so Oprah spent the first 6 years of her life living with her grandmother on a farm in Mississippi. And unlike the stories of other kids who lived with their kind, sweet old granny, Oprah's granny wasn't in any way sweet. She was mean and consistently maltreated the little girl. Oprah said her grandmother would whip her so badly that she frequently had welts on her back, and when the welts bled, she got another beating for getting her Sunday dress stained with blood. But in spite of how mean her grandmother was, Oprah enjoyed listening to the woman tell stories. She would listen in awe as she told her beautiful stories, and in time, storytelling became one of Oprah Winfrey's favorite things. Her grandmother also took her to the local church regularly and taught her how to recite Bible verses. Oprah was so good at it that those in the church nicknamed her the preacher. It was also at her grandmother's farm that she started acting. She was raised alone and had no television or friends to play with, so she made friends with the farm animals and spent most of her time reading. It turns out that life didn't start out as fair for the little girl, and for the next few years it wasn't going to get any better. In fact, everything was just about to become a whole lot worse. When Oprah turned 6, she was forced to leave her grandmother to go stay with her mother who lived in Milwaukee. Sadly, living with her mother exposed her to even more trauma. As it turned out, this was going to be one of the saddest periods in Oprah Winfrey's life story. At age 9, her cousin, uncle, and several relatives started to repeatedly abuse the little girl sexually, and this would continue for most of her teenage years. Her mother worked long hours as a maid and was barely ever home. No longer living with her grandmother, she was terribly exposed, and these men took advantage of the naive little girl. When she was 13, she ran away from home, but being unable to cope all by herself, she was left with no option but to return home, even though home wasn't particularly safe. Oprah herself spoke of a certain incident where, after she had just been raped, her cousin took her to an ice cream shop with blood running down her legs to buy her ice cream. She had no idea what was being done to her. She only knew that she didn't like how it felt. She later revealed that at the time, she didn't even know what sex was, and she had no idea where babies came from. Sadly, the abuse continued until she was found pregnant a year later. Angry on hearing this, Oprah's mother threw her out of the house into a detention home. Alone, confused, in pain, and pregnant, the little girl almost lost all hope as she thought her life was coming to an end. 14-year-old Oprah was too scared to tell the truth. She felt no one would believe her if she said her uncle, her cousin, and even one of her mother's boyfriends had molested her. She was the only one who knew the truth about the pregnancy, and no one, not even her mother, was willing to listen. After she was rejected by mother for getting pregnant, Oprah was sent to live with her father in Nashville. Sadly, the baby was delivered prematurely and died in the hospital only 2 weeks after delivery. The decision to go stay with her father would, however, prove to be the turning point in Oprah Winfrey's life. According to Oprah, her father saved her life. She lived with her father's family from the age of 14 and under the watchful, nurturing eyes of her father. Her father, a man who loved learning, provided her with all the educational help she needed, though sometimes in a rather strict manner. He demanded that she completed weekly book reports, and she would often go to bed on an empty stomach unless she learned 5 vocabulary words every day. Her father insisted that she worked hard to be more than she thought she was, by first believing that she could be more. Winfrey said that as a girl, reading gave her hope. It showed her that there were other possibilities in life. Well, these lessons began to pay off as Oprah quickly became an excellent student, participating in the debate club, drama club, and as the head of the student council. At 15, she was invited to California to perform with the church choir. During the trip, young Oprah saw the Hollywood Walk of Fame for the first time, and she promised herself that she was going to have her star there one day. With an outstanding performance in an Elks Club speaking contest, Winfrey won a full scholarship to Tennessee State University at 16. Oprah Winfrey was also crowned Miss Fire Prevention by a local Nashville radio station and was later hired to read the afternoon news. During her freshman year at Tennessee State University, she became both Miss Black Nashville and Miss Tennessee. Things were happening thick and fast, and Oprah almost got lost in the maze. The Nashville-Columbia Broadcasting System offered her a job, but she didn't think she was good enough, so she rejected the offer twice. Oprah's traumatic childhood experience was once again affecting her self-esteem. She knew the CBS job offer was a big one, but the girl whose granny made a habit of whipping her wasn't sure she was good enough for such a huge role.